Welcome back to Bible Quizzes. Today we have a special quiz on the book of Exodus, so let's get started. 1. The Israelites multiplied and filled the whole land of Egypt. True, Exodus 1:7, but the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. 2. The Egyptians feared the Israelites would join forces with their enemies and fight them. True, Exodus 1:10, come let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply and it happen, in the event of war, that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of the land. 3. The population of the Israelites was reduced by the affliction in Egypt. False. Exodus 1:12, but the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. 4. Pharaoh commanded Israelites to toss both their male and female children into the river. False. Exodus 1:22, so Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, every son who is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. 5. Moses was from the tribe of Judah. False. Exodus 2:1-2, and a man of the house of Levi went and took his wife, a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. 6. Moses' mother watched from a distance to see what would happen to the baby at the river. False. Exodus 2:3-4, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank, and his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. 7. Moses' mother was paid to nurse him. True, Exodus 2:8-9. So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him. 8. Pharaoh planned to kill Moses. True, Exodus 2:15, when Pharaoh heard of this matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. 9. Moses considered his speech to be very eloquent. False. Exodus 4:10, then Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. 10. Moses faced the same people who tried to kill him before when he returned to Egypt. False. Exodus 4:19, now the Lord said to Moses and Midian, go, return to Egypt, for all the men who sought your life are dead. 11. Moses used chariots when he traveled back to Egypt. False. Exodus 4:20, then Moses took his wife and his son, set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Egypt, and Moses took the rod of God in his hand. 12. Moses considered himself a man of uncircumcised lips. True, Exodus 6:12, and Moses spoke before the Lord, saying, the children of Israel have not heeded me, and how then shall Pharaoh heed me, for I am uncircumcised lips. 13. The Egyptian firstborn animals also died in the 10th plague. True, Exodus 11:5, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the female servant who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the animals. 14. The Passover lamb could be either a sheep or a goat. True, Exodus 12:5, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. 15. Pharaoh asked Moses to bless him before leaving Egypt. True, Exodus 12:31-32. Then he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said. Also take your flocks and your herds and bless me also. 16. The Israelites were allowed to have Hebrew servants. True, Exodus 21:1-2. Now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. 17. Hebrew servants whose wives were given by their masters left their wives behind after 7 years. True, Exodus 21:4. If his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be your master's, and he shall go out by himself. 18. Israelites were not allowed to charge interest on money lent to their fellows who were poor. True, Exodus 22:25. If you lend money to any of my people who are poor among you, you shall not be like a money lender to him. You shall not charge him interest. 19. The Israelites refrained from cursing their rulers. True, Exodus 22:28. You shall not revile God nor curse a ruler of your people. 20. The Lord said he would use 1 year to drive all the enemies of the Jews from the promised land. False. Exodus 23:29. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. 21. Whose idea was it for Egyptians to oppress the Israelites? Pharaoh's advisors, Pharaoh's daughters, the new Pharaoh's, or Joseph's? The new Pharaohs. Exodus 1:8-9. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph, and he said to his people, look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. 22. What response did the Hebrew midwives give to Pharaoh for sparing the children? They were afraid, they loved Hebrew women, it was a taboo to kill children, or Hebrew women gave birth quickly alone. Hebrew woman gave birth quickly alone. Exodus 1:19. And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. 23. What did Moses' mother use to make the baby's ark? Bulrushes, twigs, gopher wood, or dry weeds? Bulrushes. Exodus 2:3. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, but put the child in it and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. 24. Who picked the baby from the river? Pharaoh's daughter herself, Pharaoh's daughter's maid, Pharaoh's wife, or Pharaoh's daughter's friend? Pharaoh's daughter's maid. Exodus 2:5. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. 25. Why did Moses kill the Egyptian man? It was an act of self-defense. The Egyptian was beating a Hebrew. The Egyptian insulted Moses, or the Egyptian insulted God. The Egyptian was beating a Hebrew. Exodus 2:11-12. When Moses was grown, he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, so he looked this way and that way. And when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him. 26. Why did Moses name his firstborn Gershom? He said, God has heard my cries. He was the son of his old age. He was a stranger in a foreign land, or he had found refuge in the land. He was a stranger in a foreign land. Exodus 2:21-22. Then Moses was content to live with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moses. And she bore him a son. He called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. 27. Which among these were things the Israelites took from the Egyptians? Articles of gold, articles of silver, clothes, or all of the above? All the above. Exodus 3:22. But every woman shall ask of her neighbor, namely of her who dwells near her house, articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters. 28. What was Moses' reaction the first time a rod turned into a serpent? Moses fled from it, he was impressed, he was excited, or he tried to kill it. Moses fled from it. Exodus 4:3. And he said, cast it on the ground. So he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from it. 29. What happened to Moses' rod after it was converted to a serpent? Disappeared, stayed a serpent, became a rod again, or turned into dust? It became a rod again. Exodus 4:4. Then the Lord said to Moses, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. And he reached out his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. 30. What was God's reaction when Moses declined the offer of being sent to deliver Israelites? God decided to send Aaron instead? God increased Moses' faith? God sympathized with Moses? Or God became angry with Moses? God became angry with Moses. Exodus 4:13-14. But he said, O my Lord, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. 31. What did Moses tell Jethro he was going back to Egypt to do? Deliver the Israelites? Check on his brethren? Retrieve his family? Or negotiate with Pharaoh? Check on his brethren. Exodus 4:18. So Moses went and returned to Jethro his father-in-law and said to him, please let me go and return my brethren who are in Egypt and see whether they are still alive. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. 32. Why was Pharaoh's heart hardened against letting the Israelites go? Pharaoh was naturally stubborn. Pharaoh did not believe in God. The Lord hardened his heart, or he held a grudge against Moses. The Lord hardened his heart. Exodus 4:21. And the Lord said to Moses, when you go back to Egypt, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh which I have put in your hand, but I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. 33. How did Aaron and Moses handle the rods of magicians that became serpents? Aaron's rod swallowed them up, they killed the serpents, they threw them into the river, or they turned them back to rods. Aaron's rod swallowed them up. Exodus 7:11 through 12. Pharaoh also called the sorcerers, so the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. For every man threw down his rod, and they became serpents, but Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. 34. What happened to the frogs at the end of the plague? They returned to the river, died on the land and stunk. They were eaten by birds, or they turned into dust. They died on the land and stunk. Exodus 8:13-14. So the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of their courtyards, and out of the fields. They gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. 35. What plague came out of the dust when Aaron and Moses struck it? Flies, frogs, locusts, or lice? Lice. Exodus 8:16. So the Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. 36. The magicians acknowledged God's hand during which plague? Lice, water turned to blood, frogs, or hail? Lice. Exodus 8:18-19. Now the magicians so worked with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not, so there were lice on man and beast. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. 37. During which plague did Pharaoh begin to relent about sending the Israelites away? Water turned to blood, death of firstborns, frogs, or floods? Frogs. Exodus 8:7-8. And the magicians did so and brought up frogs. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go. 38. What was the fifth plague? Frogs, lice, flies, or pestilence on cattle? Pestilence on cattle. Exodus 9:3. Behold, the hand of the Lord will be on your cattle in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the oxen, and on the sheep, a very severe pestilence. 39. What did the Israelites use to apply the blood on the doorposts? A piece of cloth, bunch of hyssop, their hands, or a brush? Bunch of hyssop. Exodus 12:22. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, dip it into the blood that is in the basin, strike the lintel and the two doorposts with the blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out of the door of this house until morning. 40. At what time did God kill the Egyptian firstborns during the Passover? Noon, midnight, dawn, or dusk? Midnight. Exodus 12:29. And it came to pass at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of livestock. 41. What was the population of Israelites as they left Egypt? About 400,000 men, 900,000, 800,000, or 600,000? About 600,000 men. Exodus 12:37. Then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides children. 42. What was required of strangers before being allowed to eat the Passover? They had to be baptized, all males had to be circumcised, had to offer a sacrifice, or had to pledge loyalty to Israel. All males had to be circumcised. Exodus 12:48. And when a stranger wants to keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as a native of the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat. 43. How were firstborn donkeys which hadn't been redeemed handled? They were sacrificed, were released, necks broken or sold. Their necks were broken, Exodus 13:13. But every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, and if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck, and all the firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. 44. What did Moses use to make the bitter waters of Marah sweet? A tree, ash, salt, or a rock? A tree, Exodus 15:25. So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. When he cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them. 45. How many wells of water did the Israelites find at Elim? 70, 7, 10, or 12? 12. Exodus 15:27. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 wells of water and 70 palm trees. So they camped there by the waters. 46. What color made the curtains of the temple? Blue, scarlet, purple, or all of the above? All of the above. Exodus 26:1. Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine woven linen in blue, purple, and scarlet thread. With artistic designs of cherubim you shall weave them. 47. Which animal's hair was used to make a curtain to cover the tent? Sheep, cow, camel, or goat? Goat. Exodus 26:7. You shall also make curtains of goat's hair to be a tent over the tabernacle. You shall make 11 curtains. 48. Where did God put Moses while he passed before him to show him his glory? High mountain, cleft of the rock, in a tent, or a cave? In the cleft of the rock. Exodus 33:22. So it shall be while my glory passes by that I will put you in the cleft of the rock and will cover you with my hand while I pass by. 49. What did Moses eat during the 40 days he was in the mountain with God? Angels' food, manna, quails, or nothing? Nothing. Exodus 34:28. So he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate bread nor drank water, and he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 Commandments. 50. Why was Moses covering his face with the veil? He was shy, God told him to do so, his face shone, or to hide his identity. His face shone. Exodus 34:35. And whenever the children of Israel saw the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face shone, then Moses would put the veil on his face again until he went in to speak with them. 51. How many feasts did the Israelites observe yearly? 7, 3, 1, or 5? 3. Exodus 23:14. 3 times you shall keep a feast to me in the year. 52. How did the Israelites discard an animal killed by predators? They threw it to dogs, buried it, sold its meat, or ate it. They threw it to dogs. Exodus 22:31. And you shall be holy men to me. You shall not eat meat torn by beasts in the field. You shall throw it to the dogs. 53. How many days from birth were firstborn animals dedicated to God? 40 days, 10 days, 8 days, or 12 days? 8 days. Exodus 22:30. Likewise you shall do with your oxen and your sheep. It shall be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you shall give it to me. 54. At what time was one required to return a garment taken as a pledge? Within a month, before the sun goes down, within 7 days, or the following morning? Before the sun goes down. Exodus 22:26. If you ever take your neighbor's garment as a pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down. 55. How much were caught thieves required to restore a stolen ox? 2 oxen for an ox, 3 oxen for an ox, 4 oxen for an ox, or 5 oxen for an ox? Five oxen for an ox. Exodus 22:1. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. 56. How are the people and animals that touched sacred Mount Sinai killed? Burned with fire, thrown into a pit, stoned or shot with an arrow, or they were hanged? Stoned or shot with an arrow. Exodus 19:13. Not a hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot with an arrow. Whether man or beast, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, they shall come near the mountain. 57. Where was the rock that Moses struck the first time to get water located? Horeb, Meribah, Merah, or Sinai? Horeb. Exodus 17:6. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and the water will come out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. 58. What was the taste of manna like? Bread with butter, cakes made with milk, biscuits made with oil, or wafers made with honey? Wafers made with honey. Exodus 16:31. And the house of Israel called its name manna, and it was like white coriander seed, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. 59. How did the Israelites find manna for the Sabbath? They gathered on the Sabbath morning, gathered more on the 6th day, fasted on the Sabbath, or they ate other stored foods. They gathered more on the 6th day. Exodus 16:22. And so it was on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. 60. What happened to leftover manna the following morning? It was still edible, disappeared, bread, worms, and stank, or melted? It bred worms and stank. Exodus 16:20. Notwithstanding they did not heed Moses, but some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was angry with them. 61. At what time did God bring quails to Egypt? Evening. Exodus 16:13. So it was that quails came up at evening and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay all around the camp. 62. What's the first commandment? You shall have no other gods before me. Exodus 23-4. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make up for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the sea. 63. What is the 10th commandment? You shall not covet your neighbor's house. Exodus 20:17. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. 64. How long did Moses stay on the mountain after the covenant at Mount Sinai? 40 days and 40 nights. Exodus 24:18. So Moses went into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. 65. What wood did the Israelites use to make the Ark of the Covenant? Acacia wood. Exodus 25:10. And they shall make an ark of acacia wood. 2.5 cubits shall be its length, and 1.5 cubits its width, and 1.5 cubits its height. 66. How many cherubim did the Israelites make on top of the ark? 2. Exodus 25:18. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold of hammered work, you shall make them at the 2 ends of the mercy seat. 67. What was used to make the lampstand? Pure gold. Exodus 25:31. You shall also make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand shall be of hammered work. Its shaft, its branches, its bowls, its ornamental knobs, and flowers shall be of one piece. 68. How many lamps were made for the lampstand? 7. Exodus 25:37. You shall make 7 lamps for it, and they shall arrange its lamps so that they give light in front of it. 69. What made Moses angry that he broke the tablets of the commandments? Worship of the golden calf. Exodus 32:19. So it was, as soon as he came near the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. So Moses' anger became hot, and he cast the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. 70. What was the altar of incense made of? Gold. Exodus 45. You shall also set the altar of gold for the incense before the ark of the testimony, and put up the screen for the door of the tabernacle. 71. What was put in the laver? Water. Exodus 47. And you shall set the laver between the tabernacle of meeting and the altar, and put water in it. 72. Which book comes after the book of Exodus? Leviticus. The book of Leviticus comes after the book of Exodus. 73. What did the Israelites do anytime the cloud on the tabernacle moved? They moved forward. Exodus 40:36. Whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle, the children of Israel would go onward in all their journeys. 74. What was the shape of the breastplate? Square. Exodus 39:9. They made the breastplate square by doubling it. A span was its length, and a span its width when doubled. 75. Who were Bezalel and Aholiab? Skilled artisans who built the tabernacle. Exodus 36:2. Then Moses called Bezalel and Aholiab, and every gifted artisan in whose heart the Lord had put wisdom, everyone whose heart was stirred, to come and do the work. 76. What was inscribed on the turban worn on the high priest's head? Holiness to the Lord. Exodus 39:30-31. Then they made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold, and wrote on it an inscription like the engraving of a signet, Holiness to the Lord, and they tied it to it a blue cord to fasten it above on the turban. 77. Who made the golden calf for the Israelites to worship? Aaron, Exodus 32, 3 through 4. So all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron, and he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. 78. What material was used to make the utensils of the altar of burnt offerings? Bronze. Exodus 38:3. He made all the utensils for the altar, the pans, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. All its utensils he made of bronze. 79. What were the dimensions of the altar of burnt offerings? 5 by 5 by 3 cubits. Exodus 38:1. He made the altar burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was its length, and 5 cubits its width. It was square, and its height was 3 cubits. 80. How many chapters are there in the book of Exodus? 40 chapters. The book of Exodus has 40 chapters. And that's all our questions for today. So put your score down below and share this with your friends and family, and then we'll see you in the next one.